The church, though, which allows 1.2 billion people in its flock, has a question. Can it keep growing and remain relevant? In the United States, since 1965, the number of priests has dropped by nearly 35%, and the number of nuns has plunged 70%. Is celibacy the reason? Two of our next guests left the church for that reason. Father Edward Cutie left the church after his relationship with a woman became public. Mary Johnson left the sisterhood because of the celibacy vow. She's also the author of the new book called An Unquenchable Thirst. Father Edward Beck is a celibate priest and host of this Sunday's Mass. And I appreciate all of you taking the time. Father Cutie, let me start with you. You were a priest in the Catholic Church. You had a relationship with a woman in 2009. You ended up leaving the church, going into the Episcopalian Church, which allows married men to be priests. Does the Catholic Church have to change its view on celibacy or not?
Well, I think celibacy is very valid, especially in the case of those who feel 100% called to that life for all of their life, for their entire life. And I think that religious priests, for example, like Father Beck, who's a Passionist, and monks and religious sisters, maybe have a reason to live in community and be celibate. But secular priests were never celibate in the history of the church. The parish priest always lived like the people that he served. And so to say that celibacy has to be the way for all priests really is an imposition of the church. And it's become more than a tradition, it's become a custom to say to people, oh, celibacy is the way it's always been. Well, that's wrong. It was for many, many centuries where most priests were able to marry and have their family and be good priests.
Yeah, and Father Beck, let me ask you, Cristiano Amport talked to Timothy Dolan today, the Cardinal from New York, and you and I were sitting there watching that. It was an amazing interview, but she asked him whether the next Pope is going to consider the celibacy issue. Here's what Timothy Dolan had to say.
I would say he might talk about it and think about it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the past popes have listened and spoken about it and talked about it, so it's not going to be new.
Why do they reject it?
I think probably because for 1,000 years now, it's been something in the Roman Catholic priesthood that makes it distinct. And there has been a value to it. There is a value, a spiritual value of being free to do ministry because you don't have a wife, you don't have children, and you can give yourself totally to it. It's freely chosen.
Do you feel that yourself? I mean, you feel that calling.
I really do, yes. I could not do the priest that I do in the way that I do it and be married and have children. It's distinctive. Now, what Father Cutie said is very true. I think for diocesan priests, perhaps some of them, if they were free, would marry, and they could do their ministry just as well married. I don't think for all priests that's true, though.
And Mary, I want to ask you about the side of this from the nun's perspective. You were a nun for 20 years. I know you had fallen in love with a fellow sister, then a priest, and you finally decided to leave the Catholic Church. In the convent, you were forced to be with women all the time. You were forced to be celibate. Do you think your vows to the church, to follow the strict rules, to follow celibacy, led to you having a relationship with another woman?
I don't think that the vow of celibacy led to that. I think it's a natural, normal, human thing to have a relationship with another person. I think that growing in intimacy, growing in knowledge of yourself in relationship with another person is an important part of being a human being wherever you are, and that the more the church would allow its leaders to become more and more fully human, the better it would be for everyone.
Father Cutie,
I think also that there's...
Father Cutie, I was just
I think also that there's a...
Sorry, I'm sorry. There's a little bit of a delay. I'll just finish the question. I'm curious, Father Cutie, someone had said, a father earlier this week in an interview in Rome, that he thought about half of the people now who went to become priests were gay. Now, that was his estimate. I don't know that it's true. But if society becomes more welcoming and more accepting of gay choices, do you think that will mean fewer people choose to enter the church?
Well, I'll tell you, in my book Dilemma, when it was first published, it was very controversial for some people to hear something that most clergy know. And I would say it's more than 60% of the Roman Catholic priests are homosexual men. Some of them are celibate, and a good number of them are promiscuously gay or involved in more than one relationship. I didn't see too many homosexual priests that were faithful to one person, to tell you the truth. I saw them embrace a lifestyle many times where they were involved with many people. And you know, when we see the things in the Italian press in the last week, people get very scandalized about the gay subculture. Well, that's old. It's old news. It's been going on for a long time. Now, whether we want to accept it or not, the fact is some priests are celibate, whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, but there's a good number of priests, a significant number of priests, that are promiscuous and are living sexual lives and obviously hiding it from the institution. It's just part of reality.
Father Beck, you recoiled when he first said 60%.
Well, I don't know where he quite gets that statistic. I mean, it's certainly not been shown anywhere
Father
that
Daniel
I've seen that.
Father Daniel Coulson says that.
Well, he may say that, but that doesn't
Father
make it
Daniel
true.
Coulson says that in his books.
Okay, but that doesn't make it true necessarily. And sure, there are gay priests, and some of them are active. I would never deny that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you throw away celibacy because some don't live it well. There are married people, 52% get divorced, 60-something% have adulterous relationships in their marriages. That doesn't mean marriage isn't a sacred institution and worth something because people aren't always faithful to it.
That's an interesting point when you put it. I mean, that's a very interesting point. Mary, what do you think about the fact that there's been 70% drop in nuns, way more than priests? If celibacy were changed, would you suddenly have little girls who want to become nuns now, or is that just something that wouldn't affect the plunge in people's interest in that at all?
I think little girls in the Catholic Church might want to become priests. I think that that's really at the heart of another problem in the church, the whole subjugation of women to really a second status as far as leadership roles in the church go.
All right, well, thanks very much to all three of you. I went to Episcopal High School, grew up as a Catholic, so I got a little bit of a taste of all of it. Thanks to all three of you.